Are you a first-time homebuyer looking to purchase a property and wondering where to start and what that entails? This is why you need to review my first-time homebuyer checklist, and we're going to go through that in this video. If you want to download a copy for yourself, you can simply use the link below, or you could head to my website at www.larissafitzsimmons.com, or you can also book a call with me using my Calendly link below if you have any questions about anything real estate related. My name is Larissa, and I'm a residential real estate agent specializing in helping first-time homebuyers get into the market and helping investors purchase places that people actually want to live in. If you find this video informational and helpful, please hit subscribe or hit the like button. I would really appreciate it. So let's dive right in, okay? Let's chat about this checklist. Now, I put this together based on helping dozens of clients, first-time homebuyers purchase properties, and I thought it'd be informational and helpful just to go through it together. So that's what we're going to do today. Now, the first step when you are looking to purchase a property is most definitely assessing your financial situation. So I often joke with my clients and say, even though, you want a big detached house with 3 bedrooms and a 2-car garage, we need to know how much money you have to purchase first. It's the same as if you went to a mall and you were shopping and you didn't know how much was on the credit card. It makes it pretty difficult to know where to spend your time, what to try on, and that kind of thing. So if you think of them as the same, it makes sense as to why this is sort of your first step in the home buying process. So whether or not you go to a mortgage broker or you go directly to a bank, there's pros and cons for both, but that is definitely a topic for another video or for an offline chat if you want to give me a shout. Either one will be able to help you determine what you can spend and what you can afford. And another thing that's helpful here is you're going to want to assess your monthly budget. So a lot of the time right now, I'm finding clients are qualifying for a certain amount, but they're not really able to achieve that amount because the monthly expense with today's interest rate climate is just too big for them. So oftentimes they end up purchasing for less than what they're approved for just because they have to factor in the monthly overhead. So that is something you're also going to want to determine. And then also keep in mind that over and above your down payment and your mortgage is you have to keep in mind the down payment, certain closing costs, land transfer tax is another big one that you're going to want to calculate as well. Now you can calculate those using an online calculator. I have one on my website. There's a lot of handy ones. Or you can also just ask your real estate agent or your mortgage professional to do this for you. But you really want to get super clear on your pricing and your budget because that is going to be a huge factor that will drive your home search. And again, it's really tough to know where to spend your time if you aren't clear on your numbers. I've definitely had clients in the past fall in love with places they really couldn't afford, and then everything below that price point didn't look so great. And I have had clients do the opposite, where they realized after the fact they could actually afford more, but they had already lost that property to another buyer. So really important that we start here, and that way we can make really well-informed decisions when we are going through this home buying process. So assess your financial situation is first and foremost the first place you want to start. Now, defining your home preferences. This is step number 2. So this is where you have to really hone in and determine what are your must-haves, what are your wants versus your needs. So of course you might want a detached house, but maybe your need is that you need a freehold property of any type, whether it's a town or a semi or a detached. You need a house. You don't necessarily need the detached, but it is of course a nice thing to have. You're going to want to also determine the location. This is a huge one for some people. I find either people are location focused or property type focused. So some of my clients would rather take a smaller property in the city. And then some clients, if they could get, a detached home versus a townhome, they're willing to drive an hour out of the city. So it really depends what's important to you. And this is something that I would sort of assess between you and your partner or you, whoever's purchasing with you. Sometimes it's just you, and then that's even easier. And then you're going to want to prioritize this and research neighborhoods. This is really important. So if you don't know certain neighborhoods or you're kind of determining which neighborhood you want to be in, when you go for showings to see properties, we're often in places for maybe 20 minutes, half hour. It's a really small snapshot of that neighborhood. So I often tell my clients, every Saturday, go to a different neighborhood that you're considering living in, grab coffee, have some lunch, have some brunch, have dinner, grab a bite, walk around, and just see if you feel comfortable in that space, right? Go at different times of the day, go during rush hour, go on a Sunday afternoon, go on a Friday night. Really check out a neighborhood and see if this is the type of place that you want to live, because I can give you all the stats. I can tell you what schools are around. I can tell you where transit is, but I can't tell you whether or not the vibe of a neighborhood is going to be something that really suits you. So I think this is something that you can sort of hone in on and determine yourself just by spending time in that space. Number 3, find a real estate agent. So if you already have a real estate agent, that's wonderful. Maybe you have someone that you've worked with in the past, but if you are looking for a real estate agent or you're determining between a couple, some of the things that I would look for is asking for referrals. I always find referrals are great. You can definitely ask friends and family, ask what their experience was like, ask how hands-on a real estate agent was. When you're getting referrals, make sure you understand where that individual is in their home buying and selling journey. So for example, if you're a first-time home buyer and you're asking your parents who maybe, purchased years and years ago, or maybe they've purchased 4 or 5 homes at this point in their life, they're not going to need the same type of sort of care and hand-holding and information that you might as a first-time home buyer. So you're going to want to make sure that the real estate agent you kind of hook up with is someone who can support you wherever you're at in your journey. Another thing you can do is also look online. I know for me, if I even go to a restaurant, I always look at Google reviews. This is really important for me. So I couldn't imagine hiring a professional who's helping with one of the biggest purchases of your life. I couldn't imagine not looking at Google reviews and finding out what people say about that individual. So that could be another good place to start. And then of course you can conduct interviews, find out who you feel comfortable with. I often say, work with the person that you feel really comfortable with and that you trust. Purchasing a property is emotional. You are going to be talking about finances, which is sensitive for a lot of people. If you are looking with someone else, like a spouse, the realtor learns a lot about you as a couple throughout this journey, and you're going to spend evenings and weekends with this person for an undetermined period of time. So you want to make sure that you are working with a realtor you trust, you feel comfortable spending time with, you look forward to spending time with. That's really important, that you feel the most comfortable with them. And then once you have finalized who you want to work with, you can then go through a buyer presentation with your agent. This is something that I always do for my clients. I love to find out, where you're looking, and then I'll compile a presentation based specifically on your needs to go over and highlight what areas you're looking in, what the recent sales look like in those areas, what prices look like in those areas. I'll calculate your closing costs for you. I'll go over offers and what they entail. So when we see something we like and we put an offer in, it's not the first time you're learning about financing conditions and home inspections and status certificates. We'll have talked about all of that beforehand. So I find a buyer presentation is really important. And also it gives you an opportunity to chat with your real estate agent about representation, about buyer representation agreements, about any paperwork you might have to sign. This is something that's really important, just so you can make sure you're comfortable with the experience and you can be on the same page throughout your journey. And then also just I put in here to communicate your goals and preferences clearly. Again, if you're working with a real estate agent, we will determine things as you go with what you're looking for. And sometimes your search will change as you start looking. You'll think that you didn't care about location, and then suddenly you might, or vice versa. Once you see how small things are, you might think, oh God, I'm willing to drive a little further out. But it's important you communicate with your agent. They're really there as an extension of you to represent you. And so you're going to want to make sure that you're on the same page and communicating together. Now, you've determined your budget and your mortgage preferences. You've determined what are your wants and needs, and you have a real estate agent. So you're good to go with the house hunt. This is definitely the most exciting part of your journey. Now, when you start looking, there's a few things you can do. You can attend open houses. So I have some clients who, again, are checking out neighborhoods on the weekend and they see an open house they want to go. By all means, you can go to open houses. But if you are looking more seriously, or there's a home that you think you might really like, I would definitely book in a private showing with your agent. This way you can spend a half hour in the home, just you your partner, your friend, your family member, or just your realtor, and you can go through it at your own pace without any distractions. That's more of how a private showing would go. Of course, open houses can be a little busier, but open houses can also be good because you can see the type of people coming in and out of the house and who is going to be attracted to that neighborhood and whether or not that's the type of people you want to be around. So sometimes open houses are great for that reason. And then also, you're going to want to make sure you take notes and photos and really compare properties when you're looking at them. I know sometimes for my clients, if we've seen 5 homes, they all start to blend together by the end of it, or you kind of forget what the basement or the backyard looked like. So take notes as you go. Take your time. Don't be afraid to see 2 properties today and 2 tomorrow, so you can really digest what a property looked like, and make sure you see it all. And then you do want to consider future growth. So with this, I would say, yes, you want to be mindful of what the future value might be. So, is there a TTC station going in nearby? Does it have great schools? You want to consider these things, but I would not purchase a property or be hesitant to purchase a property just based on future value. It is definitely something you want to, if you're an end user and a first-time buyer looking to live in it, you want to purchase a property that you're going to want to live in as well. If you buy solely on future opportunity and not at all based on what you need today, then you probably will end up selling sooner than you should. So you want to kind of take that point with a grain of salt. Now, the next step, number 5, making an offer. So let's say you've toured a lot of properties. Maybe it's the first one, maybe it's the 20th, but you find a house and you love it. Okay, a house or a condo. This is the one for you. Now we're doing an offer. So when you make an offer, you're going to work with your real estate agent to craft a competitive offer. Now you're going to want to keep in mind things like pricing, of course, the price that you provide to the seller. You're going to want to keep in mind what conditions you include. Hopefully you've gone over conditions during the buyer presentation with your agents. You understand your options. And then you're going to want to negotiate with them, with the seller, depending on the market you're in. So today's market is a little slower. There's a lot of opportunity for negotiation depending on the property. However, in some markets, there's not as much room for negotiation, or you're in a competing offer situation, which typically means you're going to send your best offer first. So your real estate agent should help you navigate that, let you know if there's room for negotiation. Today, there's a lot of room, but I've definitely in the past been in situations with 20 offers, and there is little to no room for negotiation. So depending on the market you're in, you can craft an offer based on that. And if there are counter offers, so you're negotiating back and forth, try to stay open-minded, try to stay flexible, but it is true that in these situations, they can get emotional and you can end up spending more than you want, or you can end up foregoing things that were once quite important to you, like a home inspection or financing condition. So make sure you go into an offer situation knowing your bottom number and knowing what you're willing to budge and not budge on. And even if you need to tell your agent that to hold you accountable, that's also a good idea. But it is really easy, especially when there's other offers on the table, to want to come out, on top, or to want to win the house. And you want to make sure you do that at a price point and terms that you're comfortable with. Okay, so you've purchased the home now, right? Now we're going to inspect the property. So if you have purchased a home, it is often, there's often provided to you a home inspection. Now, again, it depends on the kind of market that we are in. So if we are in a situation where it is competitive, meaning there's a lot of buyers on the market, it's more a seller's market, it's not uncommon for a seller to get a home inspection done before listing a property on the market, in which case you can review that before you actually send an offer in. If, however, we're in a position where we don't have a home inspection to review before and you want to include it as a condition, I generally recommend having a home inspection done, just because with homes, it's such a risk not to. So if that's the case, let's say we had a home inspection condition, at that point, you want to fulfill that condition. So if we put that in there, and we need to now fulfill it, then that means the buyer, meaning yourself, would need to hire a home inspector to come through the property. Generally, home inspections can be anywhere from $500 to $600. It depends on the scope, how big the property is, where it's located, and that kind of thing. And then we'll have them come through. inspect the property, see if there's any concerns that might need to be addressed. And if there is room to negotiate repairs, by all means, right? If there's something in there that really wasn't clear that we discovered, we might be in a position where we can renegotiate, then that's something that we can talk about. Now, if you're buying a condo, generally speaking, we don't do condo inspections because major things you're looking for in a home inspection are things like foundation, the roof, any leaking. And in a condo building, you don't usually have the roof, you have a unit above you, and foundation is deep into the ground. So with the condos, what we'd actually do instead of a home inspection, we review what's called a status certificate. Now, a status certificate talks about the health of a building. So it'll talk about the reserve fund, which is basically a big bank where all your money will go and you pay the maintenance fee. A portion of that goes to this reserve fund. So it'll talk about whether or not the reserve fund has enough money in it to satisfy any future repairs, any immediate future repairs. It'll talk about whether there's any litigation in the building. Basically, what will tell us is whether or not the building is well run and a sound investment. Now, the status is always reviewed by a lawyer. We can review it too, but we're not technically qualified because there is a lot of legal jargon. So you're going to want to have a lawyer review the status certificate for you. Generally, a lawyer can do this pretty quickly within a couple of hours. So if you purchase a condo, same thing. If it's a competitive market, they'll usually provide the status before an offer date or before you place an offer. But if it's not a super competitive market, you might be conditional, just waiting for that to come in. When it does come in and it's been ordered, then the lawyer can review. If all looks good, then you say great and you firm up on that condition. If there's something that needs to be addressed, we can find answers for you from management. And if there is, a big fee coming up in the condo building, maybe that's something we renegotiate on. I'd say though, generally speaking, status certificates don't really bring up many issues. I am thankful that I have not had a single buyer, walk away from a property due to status. It's generally fine, but it is something you want to review just to make sure you're doing your due diligence. Okay, so we've gone through conditions. I know that's a heavier thing to talk about. Some people definitely, when I go through this, they can kind of tune out. Like, I definitely think that is a bit more of a cumbersome part of purchasing a property, but that's why you have an expert here to help. And then once that's done, you're going to want to secure your financing. Okay, so you're going to want to get your financing secured again with your mortgage broker or your bank. At this point, you've already been pre-approved, but now you have an actual property. So you're going to want to send them your agreement of purchase and sale. You're going to send them the MLS data sheet. This is all things your real estate agent should provide to you in order to give to your mortgage broker and do that legwork for you. And then you're going to want to secure your financing. So you're going to want to review the terms with your provider. You're going to decide if you're going to go fixed or variable. They'll provide different options to you. And then, of course, if you put less than 20% down, you're going to need the mortgage insurance, usually it's CMHC. And if you do put 20% down, you don't need this. Now, keep in mind, if you buy over $1 million, you don't have that option. You have to put 20% down. And then you're going to finalize your mortgage details with the provider. Okay, we're almost through here. Now we hit number 8, which is where we close the deal. So after you have secured financing, everything has gone firm, this is when you're going to review the documents with your lawyer. Generally, this happens a couple days before you get the keys to your property. So let's say you purchase something July 15th, the closing date is September 15th. This meeting with the lawyer is done like September 10th, 11th, 12th. It's really close to the closing day. So during this time, you're going to review all the closing documents with your lawyer, including the mortgage documents as well. And then you're also going to want before the closing date. So everything's finalized, but we've already purchased. We're waiting for September 15th. You're going to also have 2 homebuyer revisits. Okay. The first one you can do anytime you want. You can do it a week after you bought, 3 weeks after you bought, a day after you purchased, doesn't matter. And this is an hour visit back to the property. Generally, people like to use this time to go through the home again, take measurements, maybe bring their parents or their close friends, and just sort of realize that you bought this place and plan for the future. So again, that 1 hour visit can be done anytime. Now, the last 1 hour visit, I generally say to keep close to the closing day. So again, hypothetically, let's say we close September 15th. I would go September 12th or 13th. I'd go really close to the closing day. This one we're going to use to assess the property before you get the keys. So we're going to test the appliances. Maybe we're going to test the AC and the heating. We're going to take a look around, make sure everything is in good condition. 99% of the time when you buy a place, you're going to be saying that all the appliances are in good working order. If you say they're as is, then they're as is. There's not much to test. But if you say that it's in good working order, we're going to want to make sure they are actually in good working order, because if not, the sellers have an obligation to fix them or replace them. But once you get the keys to the property and you close, if something breaks down, the onus is on the new owner, aka you, to fix things or replace them. So we're going to do this a couple of days before closing to protect you and make sure that everything is still working and in good condition. Then you're going to sign the paperwork, you're going to get the keys, and you're going to celebrate for just a hot second before you move in, because you've officially become a homeowner. I know it seems quick, but it is quick. Sometimes my clients are shocked at how easy it is to purchase a property. You have some steps in place, but truly sometimes people think, wow, it was just as easy to buy as it is to rent. The steps seem quite similar. So we're going to celebrate. You got the place, you're going to get the keys, pop the champagne if you want to, and then you're going to move in and go through all of that. So next, you're going to hire your movers. You're going to move into your space. You're going to want to do all that good stuff like change your address. So you're going to want to register for the utilities. And you're also going to want to forward your mail. Now, if you are in a condo, for example, this is something you'll probably do before you get the keys, because you're going to want to book the elevators for that property. But you're going to want to make sure you have all the registrations up to date for all the providers that are needed, so that you don't have, the hydro turning off on you once you're in. And now once you're in your property, you're settled, you're happy, you've been there a little bit, you're going to want to make sure that you maintain your investment. So create a maintenance schedule for your property. If you purchase a home, there's a lot of things you need to maintain. Are you going to clean the eaves troughs in the spring and the fall? Are you going to ask somebody to do it and hire someone? Are you going to hire a cleaning lady? Are you going to hire someone to shovel your driveway? There's lots of things you can do to maintain a home. And similarly, if you're in a condo, you might be doing tweaks here and there. You might want to have someone come in and clean the heat pump yearly. That's something a lot of buildings schedule for you and you can pay into. But you're going to want to make sure you take good care of your property and make sure you budget for these repairs over time. So things can come up, things can break down. You're going to want to make sure you have some money set aside for if that is to happen, that it's not catching you off guard, that you have the money, to buy a new furnace or to buy a new heat pump in a condo if suddenly yours breaks down. And maybe that looks like a line of credit, maybe that looks like money in a savings account, but either way, just make sure you budget for that, because things happen all the time when we least expect it. And then stay connected with your real estate agent. I definitely like to send my own clients a couple times a year some recent sales in their building or in their neighborhood, because a lot of people do want to know what's happening. What's my value? What is, the market doing around me? And even though you're not really going to be impacted by the market, if you're not planning to sell, it's just nice to kind of stay up to date, see what neighbors are moving, what things are selling for. Hopefully they're selling for more than you paid. But the market, as we know, can go like this. And again, you're not affected unless you sell. So this is it. This is my 10-step checklist for home buyers. This is it in a nutshell. If this is something that you find helpful and useful and something you want to use, then again, you can just download it from my website or download it using the link below this video. And if you have any real estate questions, this is really a general checklist, but of course there are small nuances throughout for everyone's unique journey. So if this is something that you have questions about, please feel free to reach out to me. There's plenty of free resources on my website, as well as a buyer guide if you want to download that as well. But I'm always here and happy to help you as a resource.